SIDREC is a body approved by the Securities Commission of Malaysia, or the SC, to provide investors with an alternative dispute resolution avenue to the courts to seek redress should they have a legitimate monetary claim against their providers or capital market products and services who are SIDREC members. So we currently have 133 SIDREC members. Investors can take a look at the full list of our SIDREC members on our website. It's www.sidrec.com.my. So SIDREC members include banks, Islamic banks, stockbrokers, derivative brokers, unit trust management companies, fund managers, and providers of private retirement schemes. We provide three types of dispute resolution services. Firstly is case management, second is mediation, and the third is adjudication. So SIDREC currently operates two different dispute resolution schemes for the capital market. The first one is mandatory scheme and the second one is voluntary. So claims of up to 250,000 fall under the mandatory scheme. Under this scheme, SIDREC's dispute resolution services are free for investors. However, claims above 250,000, together with court-referred mediation, fall under the voluntary scheme, where both parties have to agree to use SIDREC's services and they have to pay a reasonable fee for using our services. So SIDREC's purview is to handle monetary claims that relate to 4 different regulated activities under the Capital Markets and Services Act, or known as the CMSA. So firstly, the regulated activity of dealing in securities. Under this purview, we can accept monetary claims that relate to equities, debentures, unit trust products, and any other structured products. Secondly, will be the regulated activity of dealing in derivatives. Thirdly, the regulated activity of dealing in private retirement schemes. And finally, the regulated activity of fund management. So since our inception, the two main categories of claims by type of product or service that SIDREC has received relate to shares and warrants, as well as unit trusts. So we broadly categorize the type of claims that we receive into 3 types: capital market, service standard, and members' practices and policies. So between 2011 and 2019, market conduct-related eligible disputes have formed the largest number of disputes that we receive in any given year. But in the last 2 years, service standard-related eligible disputes have made up the largest number of disputes received, although market conduct-related one remains quite significant. So disputes that fall under the category of service standard-related eligible disputes include alleged delays, errors, or glitches in online systems, and in recent years, quite a high percentage of disputes we have received in this area. For instance, in 2020, SIDREC received 44 eligible disputes, or 43% of total disputes received in 2021. And in 2021, we received 12 eligible disputes, or 26% of total disputes received. So this trend of receiving a high percentage of disputes relating to online platforms could potentially be due to the increasing digitalization of finance and the corresponding increasing reliance by investors on online platforms when transacting in capital market products. In terms of disputes that fall under the category of market conduct-related disputes, these include fraud, misappropriation, questionable sales practices such as mis-selling, bad advice, product unsuitability, and inadequate disclosure. So since 2016, the number of disputes that SIDREC has received in this area has fallen. So that's quite good news. But this does not mean that both investors and our members can relax. They have to continue to remain vigilant and guard against questionable sales practices, inadequate disclosure, or product unsuitability. We just released our annual report on the 29th of March. So maybe I can share the statistics for 2021. Okay, so in 2021, SIDREC managed a total of 76 disputes, out of which 43 were resolved. Of the 43 disputes, 27 were resolved through case management, 11 through mediation, and 5 through adjudication. Before an investor may file a claim with SIDREC, they must first have lodged a formal complaint with the relevant SIDREC member. It's a common question that we receive. Why is it necessary for investors to file a claim with the SIDREC member first before coming to SIDREC? I mean, investors, when they have lost money, they want to recover the money as quickly as possible, right? But there is a very valid reason for this. It is to provide an opportunity for retail investors and their market intermediary to come together to try and resolve the complaint amongst themselves first. So through this exercise, we hope that both parties will understand each other's perspective better, foster better relationships, and smoothen future dealings between them. So this is a very important precondition before an investor can come to SIDREC. They must have lodged a formal complaint with the relevant SIDREC member. Now, once the investor has lodged a complaint with the relevant SIDREC member, the member has up to 90 days from the date of receipt of the complaint to resolve the dispute through its own internal dispute resolution process. Now, where the member has attempted to resolve the complaint and has issued what we call a final reply on the matter, the investor can then come to SIDREC if he or she is not happy with the final reply. So what's a final reply? The final reply is a written communication from the SIDREC member to the investor stating that that is the member's final response on the investor's complaint, right? So upon receiving the final response or reply from the member, the investor must come to SIDREC within 180 days from the date of the receipt of the member's final reply. And in order to file a complaint with SIDREC, the investor may download the claim form from SIDREC's website, fill in all the details required, and email the claim form together with supporting documents to info@sidrec.com.my. Alternatively, investors may also email us again at info@sidrec.com.my or call the SIDREC office to make an appointment to come in and file a claim. However, for this latter option, the investor has to take a COVID-19 self-test and be found negative, as well as be fully vaccinated before the investor may walk into SIDREC's office to lodge a complaint. So what sort of supporting documents that an investor must bring with them? It really very much depends on the type of claim and the nature of the claim that the investor is lodging with us. But generally, we would definitely look at the contractual arrangements between the investor as well as the SIDREC member. So where can this be found? Is in your application form or all documents that were given to the investor when they first made that investment. So it's always very important to have, to keep that when you first make an investment. Secondly is all the investment statements or the trading statements that the investor have. As well as any communication between the investor and the agent, say if it's a unit trust product, it will be the unit trust consultant. be it through emails or WhatsApp. So we would ask for those kind of supporting documents. SIDREC's dispute resolution team comprised the head of dispute resolution and 5 case managers. All SIDREC's case managers are legally trained, and a couple of them are also certified mediators. So what happens during case management? The case manager will pose queries to the investor and the member to find out more about the dispute and obtain relevant documents. The case manager may also hold discussions with the investor or the member to better understand the surrounding circumstances of the dispute. Now, once all relevant information and documents have been received, and I would like to emphasize that it is all relevant information and documents that have been received, SIDREC has will try to resolve the matter within 90 working days from that date. Right. So throughout this period, the case manager may still make further inquiries and arrange for a mediation session and later an adjudication hearing. So as I said, mediation and adjudication is conducted by SIDREC's panel of mediators and adjudicators. SIDREC's panel comprised of senior practitioners in both the legal field and the capital market sector. We currently have 12 members who are either mediators and or adjudicators. So at mediation, parties come together and attempt to come to an agreement on the dispute with the help of the mediator. If parties are able to come to an agreement, they will sign a written record of the terms of the resolution reached in the form of a settlement agreement. However, if parties are unable to come to an agreement, the dispute will then proceed to adjudication. At adjudication, an adjudicator will preside over the matter and pronounce a decision on the dispute. Following this, an adjudication award will be issued. The investor may accept or reject the award, but the member is bound to comply with it. Where an investor accepts the award, parties will enter into a written settlement agreement reflecting the award. Where an investor rejects the award, both parties may pursue resolution of the dispute elsewhere. Under the mandatory scheme, SIDREC services are free for the investors, and members do pay a certain amount fee for mediation and adjudication. It is under the voluntary scheme that both claimants and members are charged a reasonable fee. So for claimants and members, it's 500 ringgit for case management, 2,000 ringgit for mediation, and 5,000 ringgit for adjudication. So this is for the voluntary scheme. Again, for the mandatory scheme, the SIDREC services are free for investors. We do have instances where, a dispute that is referred to SIDREC that is not within our purview. And the common examples will be claims that are not against a SIDREC member, or where the capital market product or service does not fall under the 4 regulated activities that are under SIDREC's purview. So when this happens, what we try and do, if it's possible, is to redirect the investor to other bodies that may assist them. And this could include the regulators themselves, like Securities Commission of Malaysia or Bank Negara Malaysia, or even our sister organization, which is the Ombudsman for Financial Services. We don't deal with fraud because that one is under the purview of the police, as you say. So if somebody lodges a complaint with us that relates to a fraud, the first thing that we do is we say, please go lodge a police report. And secondly, of course, also to refer them to the Securities Commission, to the SC. Because for SIDREC, our purview, and this is something that is very important, our purview is really monetary claims. We only handle disputes relating to monetary claims, not conduct per se. If it's a monetary loss that arises from a conduct issue, then yes, that is something that we will handle. what I would suggest and I would advise, and this is based on the cases that we have received and inquiries that we have received as well, I would say, be always, try and verify whether the agent or the entity that is trying to sell you an investment product is either registered or licensed by the relevant authorities such as SC, BNM, Bursa Malaysia. Besides that, I think investors must remember that they ought to deposit money, with the entity itself, as opposed to, say, the individual agent, right? So then they are less likely, I think, to fall into a mishap of, say, scam or something. I'm not saying that all agents are, out there to cheat you, but it's to also safeguard that, whatever investment that you are purchasing, you deposit the money with the entity itself, and never hand over cash to any of their representatives or deposit money into their personal accounts.